as part of the roll call. In just a minute that all 5 members of the board are here, but as is your custom, Mr. Chairman, today we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, now we'll give us a roll call.
Yeah, we should note that Mr. Baird, Mr. Truckee, Mr. Kish are here today in person. We also have Mr. McNamee and Ms. Annalise who are participating virtually today, and I don't see them, but that's what David indicated. Is Annalise on as well? Is she there, Dave?
I didn't see her.
Okay.
No, she may be listed as something else.
Okay, then we will show for the time being that Mr. Truckee is with us virtually. Ms. Hanson has yet to log in with that.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, public comments.
We'll need a motion next to approve the agenda.
And to approve our full
To
participation.
recognize our
Yes,
two.
I make a motion that we recognize our 2 participants online.
Finding exceptional circumstances.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Now, down to public comment. We do have a couple registered this morning. Mr. Case here.
Yes.
Mr. Case? Oh, no, sir. No, this is for any public comment for items that may not be on the agenda today. If not,
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
no, then that's fine. And then the next one is Ron? You're here. Case Drive? Right here. Yes, sir. Would you like to, or were you just signing in?
Just finding it.
You just came to get a half a dozen cookies.
Exactly, yeah.
There are no public comments at this time. Item 4 today is the approval of the minutes. This would have been from your last regular meeting that occurred on April the 19th, and they're behind the next tab. Annalise, have you had a chance to look at these?
I have.
Do you have any edits?
I'm good with them. Yeah, I'm good.
I have no edits, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's a quick one.
Yes, sir.
In that case,
I kept looking.
we need a motion to approve.
Yeah, motion to approve is submitted. Mr. Kish, your second?
Yep, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 There's not even one typo in here. Wow.
So the next item is the initial presentation of the tentative budget for 2025. And let me also just skip ahead briefly, because one of the assumptions, and this budget is little changed from the current year, as it relates to the non-ad valorem assessment in support of both your operations and also your utility system. At the end of yesterday, though, I did have a conversation with your utility rate consultant, and the good news is that they have finished and loaded their analytic model, and they are ready to present that to you. Next week is not a good week for anyone, being a holiday, but we're going to try and see if the board is available for a workshop meeting sometime during the first 2 weeks in June, so that they can work you through this model and show you what the new base rate characteristic would be, and then the metered rate assumptions on top of this new, I'll call it customer base rate in lieu of the non-ad valorem assessment that has subsidized your system for years. And so they want to walk this thing through and present it to the board, give you some different assumptions as to how you can go about applying a new rate, or how you would phase that rate in over time and continue to subsidize the system over the short term, if that's what the board elected to do. But they have finally got some work product that they're prepared to share. So as it relates to the
Neil?
Yes,
Neil?
sir.
Could they send me that previous to this meeting? I mean, if it's done, so I can look at it, so I have some questions for them when we actually meet?
Yeah, in fact, you can't see this. I actually took kind of a screenshot of their, what I'll call the home page of this thing, and then, Steve, it's got multiple tabs, and if they can do that, but to protect it so that it can't be manipulated in advance, I'll ask them that as soon as I get back to the office.
That they may be able to send that to me?
Electronically in advance of whenever the workshop would be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
With that, then the purpose of our initial presentation of the tentative budget is to transmit it to the county in accordance with the statute, which means that I have to have this to the county no later than June the 15th. The adoption of this budget will then be later this summer, either in July or August. I would prefer July, just because it would be nice to have it done sooner. You know, last year we kind of literally were up until the last date there. But just in terms of kind of a 30,000 foot overview, I want to tell you that the version that you have in front of you, the logic in the last column is for the wrong year. So the logic that was used on this spreadsheet is comparing 2023 against the proposed 2025. That's not what I had wanted it to be. So we'll have the variance or the difference column corrected. It may have already been done so, but I just wanted to make that obvious to you. The combined budget for next year is $1,989,467. That's split between the general fund, what we call the operating account, $587,858, and your utility account, $1,401,628. The rate of assessment is unchanged from the current year, and those rates are $403.11 for the general fund, $922.77 for a combined rate per ERU for both utilities and operations of $1,325.88. And so that's the current rates for this year, and the total ERUs are 1130 as a result of your increase last year, where you remember we went through a process to add additional units to the roll for owners of property that had not previously been assessed.
What did you have for a number for the total 25 non-ad valorem tax?
Same as the current year, it's 1325.88.
And that's
And that's
one.
split. The utility component of that is 922.77. What I call the general fund is 403.11. Got a couple of other highlights, again, here just briefly. The assumptions for those amounts that have cost of living associated with them, for example, things like engineering fees, our management fee, the utility billing fee. The current rate is 3.5%. There's some feeling that it might increase between now and the end of the year, but this budget has, where appropriate, a 3.5% increase. Some of the other areas, in particular, you have had a recent conversation. I'm talking specifically here about the general fund first. At your last meeting, you asked us to arrange a landscape architect to come out and evaluate your entry landscaping and feature. I believe that took place last week. I'll ask Mr. Baird or Ms. Hanson maybe to provide an update to that, but the architect was on site. So for the time being, if you look on page 3 here, I've put a landscape enhancement project in the capital budget, which would be new or an expanded service for next year. At the moment, I just put $100,000 in there, not knowing whether or not the board will actually undertake a project, but I thought it would be prudent to at least put a placeholder in the capital budget next year if we were going to go about some sort of irrigation retrofit and some sort of landscaping at either one or both of the entrances to the community on the south side, which I believe is the scope of the project in the meeting that occurred last month. Additionally, there were some things, again, for example, like the landscape maintenance contract is another area. I'm back on page 2 here, and I apologize for this. We programmed a 3.5% increase in your landscape maintenance contract. That and the utility operating contract are the 2 largest service agreements that we have. The proposed operating budget for next year is slightly less than this year at $587,858. The current year's budget was $611,678. That is really as a result of a programming in that $100,000 in the event that we have a landscape renovation project, and we slightly reduced the operating contingency to $127,000, really in recognition of the large cash that we have on hand that would cover this community in the event of a hurricane. Your current cash position is in excess of $4 million. I'll talk about that just a little later in a few minutes. On the landscape, on the utility fund, which is the next page, page 4, there was an inadvertent error and omission that was made on the current utility billing contract. There was no amount put in next year's budget. So as it relates to utility billing, about midpoint on page number 5, you'll see that the budget this year all in was $34,000 for utility billing. Year to date, in recognition of some additional cost and a partial cost of living adjustment that they received, the forecast is going to be closer to $38,000. And so for next year, we've already made this change, but in the copy that you have, the utility billing contract next year will be $39,000, if you want to just make that note. That change has already been made, but when these were compiled last week, I had not found that omission there. Otherwise, in terms of other professional fees, whether they're engineering, legal, or engineering, those are all in line with the current year's budget. Really no increase there. And in fact, in one instance, we're actually forecasting probably less engineering fees operationally. That has certainly been the case the last 3 months since you made a change in engineers from the former firm to the current firm. The total budget On the water and sewer side, next year is $1,401,628, as noted on page 6 there. The current year budget is $1,392,000, so we're just slightly above for next year. The other big offset there is I put an operating contingency line in for unknown repairs to our water distribution system or potentially the collection system. You'll see on page 6 under capital and other contingencies, we put a $86,000 contingency item in there in anticipation of really some of the repairs that we saw this year. We're beginning to see some repair necessity both on the distribution side and in the collection side. I have not put under major capital outlay a number in yet for the new concrete storage tank because we haven't actually received an estimate of probable cost. But again, if that project were to move forward and be bid and awarded sometime in the course of 2025, the source of funds would be that $4 million cash position, or what I call fund equity that we alluded to earlier. With that, I think I'll stop just for a second and see what types of questions. Again, you're not adopting the budget today. The budget at the final adoption hearing can be changed, but the rate of assessment cannot be increased. And so currently the rate of non-ad valorem assessment would remain the same. It is still highly conceivable that if you go with a new rate structure, that before we get to October the 1st, you are eligible to reduce the non-ad valorem assessment on the utility side if you're going to replace that with some type of new base rate and then a different rate structure for metered usage after that. So the first step here today, and at the appropriate time, the appropriate motion would be to authorize the chairman to approve resolution 2024-1 in order to transmit the tentative budget to the county in accordance with the statute.
Just a question, would the budget that's approved be the one that's in the book or the one that's revised that you mentioned as you've gone along?
It will be the revised one that includes the $39,000 for the utility billing component.
Steve, do you have any questions on that?
Yeah, I do. That $39,000 for utility billing, if I'm remembering right, we were paying Cal's company around 24 grand to do that. It just seems like that's getting to be an awful lot of money just to put out 6 bills a year. I'm sure that there's more involved in it than just sending out a bill, but it seems like that's getting pretty high. I would like the opinion of the rest of the board if they think that we should leave that total non-ad valorem assessments at, $1,300 and change. Do you? I know before we were paying, a couple of thousand. Does anybody have any views on that?
We're going to talk about that a little bit, Steve, when we had Mitch come up and talk about the water utility and things, and we could talk about our CIP.
So then I don't think that we should vote for this resolution then until we've decided, because once you lock that in, you can't change the non-ad valorem assessment.
No, Steve, you can change it at the adoption hearing in July. And so if you're going to eliminate it or you're going to reduce it, but you can't add it back in. So the preference today would be to keep it in until you adopt the budget later in the summer.
So in July, if the community decided they wanted it, they could still raise that assessment or not?
Well, no, you can't raise it after today. You can eliminate it.
Yeah. And that's why I'm asking the question, is the rest of the board comfortable with that at 1,300 and some?
1325.
Does anybody have any opinion on that?
Well, we have some money. Our new CIP is looking close to $8 million
Yes.
in the next 5 years to
Yes.
maintain the water plant. We have some money, and some of that will be under grant monies. And I can't hit the books yet because
And some of it, and this was, the utility rate consultants have talked to me about this. This is a strong utility system, small but strong in terms of its balance sheet. And they are recommending debt going forward, not in the immediate future, but either some sort of revenue bond or what is the commercial paper equivalent for a governmental entity in order to finance some of these big improvements in the out years. I'd say from year 3 to 5 in particular. But
Why would they recommend debt? The high
that-
interest rates that we have now.
just to get a better amortization and spread the impact of that debt. I mean, you are eligible to do a special assessment, a one-time sort of pay as you go and have cash on hand. But again, those are some of the assumptions that you can talk further about when we have this workshop, is how much debt in what year, and do you want to have service the debt, or do you want to use cash and only borrow when necessary?
Well, here's one other option that I'm looking at is, do you want to raise it now, say 1,600, with the idea that, because that gives us room. Then when we come back in July or June, whenever it is, to come up with the final assessment, we can vote then to put it back to the 1,300. But the way it is right now, we're locking a cap on it. So would it make any sense to just, for another word, just arbitrarily raise it now, knowing that if we come up with the, after we see all this stuff, but we don't need it, that we lower it before we implement it?
So
What do you do?
I think what would be necessary, though, would be to provide direction as to which line items in the budget will be increased for expenditure. That has to happen in order to come up with the number, whether it's in the O&M piece or in the utility piece. So you have to, that Neil would need that information.
We would need to put that under a capital reserve or contingency if it was not a specific project. But I hear what you're saying, Steve.
That's why I'm thinking, and the idea of putting it in reserves makes sense to me. I just hate without knowing what we're going to be having coming in and whatnot, not seeing this what the ERCs are going to be. I'd sure like to give us some room for increasing if we have to, but with the idea that if we don't have to, we won't do it. But we're locking ourselves in on the top, not on the bottom.
Yeah, so every 100,000 we go up, every $100 we went up, we'd get about 110,000.
Yeah.
Which 110,000, is not a lot of money when you start looking at CIPs at 8 million.
But it would give us a cushion, and I don't like that. I don't really want to. Hopefully, we don't have to go that route.
Yeah, so that's purely a policy and somewhat political, decision. But I would tell you that, at your current rates of 13.25 when compared to other CDDs or special purpose districts like this, that's a real bargain because none of them, own and operate a utility system either. So you can make a good argument either way, but Russ is correct. The increased amount would give you about another $180,000 if you went to a flat 1,500.
Okay. Do you want to open it to the floor for questions right now?
Yeah, I guess, Neil, just for discussion purposes for the board, you're calculating what numbers would need to be added to the contingency for the O&M, contingency for utilities to achieve a higher assessment level.
Okay. I'd like to take a
I-
moment.
I would like to, I would like to suggest putting that on the O&M side of it rather than the utility side for reserves on operation and maintenance, because that's really, after this is all changed over to the utility rates, going basically on the utility bills rather than non-ad valerums, because, you know, we're still trying to figure out, you know, if we could start doing street projects and, you know, other types of projects like that.
Right. Where do the capital improvements fall into in that? That's not under the maintenance.
I believe it is.
Yes, it would have to be.
Under the general fund budget, correct, Neil?
Yes.
So that would be the general fund operations and maintenance assessment.
And currently, the only money in there currently is that placeholder for a landscape enhancement project. And so I would add an additional line, I would call it a capital reserve, and the actual number was $198,000. At a flat 1,500 per ERU times the 1130.
I'm okay with that. I mean, if we can reduce it if we have to. I mean, if we want to.
You can take it out in
Yeah.
July or August, whenever you have your final hearing. But if you want to at least have the option to do that, we need to do that today.
Yeah.
Neil,
Right.
Neil, do you feel that $1,500 is enough and is comparable to other communities? Because, you know, in the past, we've been cash poor. I would like to start building up some more reserves, knowing that we've got, you know, this $8 million CIP hanging above us, so that we don't shock everybody, you know, and go from $1,300 to $2,000 in a year or two because we didn't take a little bit more, you know, an incremental increase now. And, you know, like I said, before we were paying $2,000. When I moved here, it was over $2,000. And I realized that that was to be paying off a bond, which that bond is gone. But on the same token is we're going to have maintenance on all of that stuff in the future. And, you know, and people want other things like the landscaping and possibly a community center and, you know, just improvements to the place. You know, I'm probably putting my fingers in a mousetrap, but I'd like to see it even go a little higher than that. And with the idea that we may not need it and we can lower it again in a month. What do you?
And I guess the question for the board is because again, separating out the ERU assessment for O&M versus the ERC assessment, the concept is to increase the budget for the assessments that would be used to fund it would be the O&M assessments it's per ERU. And so that number, Neil, would be what? Because they got, you know, splitting that out. That would be
400. Let me just.
That would be over 1,000,
Like
600 maybe?
600.
600%.
All right, let's take a time out just for a second. We have a couple questions from the people here.
Sure.
Mr. Case?
Hi, gentlemen and ladies. It seems the decision really needs additional information, and today I thought we would actually get a report from this rate consultant, and if it's now being moved into June. My main question for Mr. Perez was, is it possible to just extend the meeting on this topic of vote till that date? Because I want to come back and be at that work session. Everything I've heard at this meeting is a beautiful alignment of concerns of the past, present, and future. And we definitely want to have a good utility plan going forward with the new builders arriving at the table. So that was the question, I guess, for Mr. Press. Can this topic just be delayed until the board meeting or extension? Is that what it will be? Work session?
Well,
It's up to the board to decide.
I don't see why we have to extend it now. I mean, we're just talking about a preliminary budget just to get it in To meet,
But you
to meet
can't
the county
change it,
demand.
you say.
Yeah, we
We can
can.
reduce it.
We can
just
You
reduce
can
it.
only reduce,
today.
and I'm thinking, can you just not have to decide at like today? Maybe you can delay the decision till the June meeting, and once you're done through the work session, you go, okay, that's the number.
Well, it has to be submitted when to the county?
The June meeting will be after our deadline.
Yeah.
Ah, fair enough. Didn't understand that.
June 15th is when Neil has to get the,
We can put it in order to reserve the right to take it out. I can't do it the other way.
I mean, I put it the highest number we could, and then we can always reduce it, because it's just preliminary right now.
I'm for it, just what's the dollar amount? What do you want to raise it to?
2,000,
Huh?
go back to 2,000.
Oh,
We can always
yeah,
reduce it.
that'll never float.
It's just a number on paper for today.
And so the
That's
CIP.
all it is. It's just giving us the ability to go up if we need to. It's not saying we're going to. Well, I don't like the idea of us limiting our options when we don't have the information yet.
Okay,
So what do you want to do? Go 2,000? I'm starting to feel like a real politician here.
that's a $700 increase.
Yeah, I know.
I have a question.
I don't know what to do that.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I want to
good, yeah.
explain something, let me explain something to these guys. We have a brand new CIP, we have new engineering, they brought all our community capital improvement plan up to current prices. We had an older capital improvement plan that was way behind as far as costs and what we had to do and how to do it. And so our new engineers brought that all up to date. The dollar amount is about $8 million to bring the plant up to where we need it.
So what was that up from before? You know what kind of increase it was? Like
And it was
25%?
like 4, it doubled. It was like 4.
Yeah.
The past engineering firm obviously did not do their job when they made the CIP. It looks like they pulled numbers out of the air and it wasn't accurate. This time, the engineering firm did a very thorough study and gave us numbers we can trust.
And it is, it's good numbers. The question that comes in is some of that $8 million is going to be covered by grants. And we're still in the process, and like I always tell you, we can't count grants until they're in the pocket. All right, but we're finalizing some of the stuff with FEMA and some of those. So there will be some of that coming back in grants. Then the question is, if we have 4 million, how much do we have to set aside to be able to have the whatever's left out of that 8 million that we have to cover? So at this point, it's projecting what our expenses are going to be and taking a stab at it. So later we don't have to come to you and say, we need a special assessment, we need a bunch of money from you right now, or go and take out a loan in this high interest rate market. Right, so right now we're planning ahead and trying to balance that. That's what's going on.
Just to Mr. Kish's point here and in answer to the question. So if we go from 132588 to a flat 1500, that's an increase of every ERU by $174.12. That generates just a little bit less than $200,000 in new money, $196,755 exactly. And I would recommend that we plug that in as a capital reserve in the general fund. And then that would bring your general fund from 587 to 784,613. And again, that roughly $200,000 worth of additional money put off in that reserve fund in anticipation of other adjustments that you may make following this utility rate presentation that is imminent.
Neil, I think that your $1,500 is a reasonable assumption right now, but that still doesn't. And I would hope that in a month or when we finalize this budget, that the $1,500 we'll look at that and say, yeah, I think that's an adequate amount. Let's stay with that. But I still think that we should be putting on a higher ceiling on this now so that we have options. Do you agree?
Yeah, let me answer it this way, Steve. Just because I have other clients let's
I got
just
you.
look at the general fund, not the utility fund.
Yes.
Your current rate, 403.11, may be the lowest rate in Southwest Florida. And there are plenty of CDDs. The only thing they do is maintain their preserve and conservation areas, and they keep the lakes sprayed because it's the Master Homeowners Association that does everything else with respect to infrastructure and landscaping. And I'm just telling you, at 403.11, that may be the lowest rate anywhere in Southwest Florida that either clients that Tony or I have.
Very true.
And that's the other thing too. When we put money in reserves, we're not going to be paying high interest on it when we need it. And we got to start looking at, you know, the last board felt it was important enough to borrow money because the interest rates were really low. We decided that wasn't the direction that we wanted to go. Not that it was wrong or anything else. It just, we didn't feel it was necessary given our position. But I would say we're going to accomplish the same thing as what they were trying to do. Only thing is, we're going to get the money up front from the citizens rather than from a bank who have already been used to paying that.
I think an additional $174 per unit here that raises it to $577 still has a lot of value. I don't have any problem with that at all.
He wants to go higher.
I know.
1,800.
We went up 400 up to 1,900.
Well, remember that the CIP, the big expenses are in a 5-year plan. We don't have to raise all the money this year.
But also, don't keep thinking that this number, this high number, is what we're going to live with. We're just giving ourselves the option. You know, and I know how government works. If it's appropriated it, you know, people are going to spend it, but that's not what we want to do.
Well, what's your number?
Well, if you go up another $400, it gets you another $500,000.
It does.
Yeah.
And you do that for 5 years, boy, you're kidding.
Yeah.
So they try to
But we won't. Yeah.
work
We're
session.
not gonna hear him if he doesn't come up to the yes.
I guess the question is,
Mr.
Neil, you calculate what that number would be. If you want to, right now your number would be what, Neil? It goes from 403 to 5.
77.23.
As on the general fund side. And that would then combine with the ERC non-ad valorem, that's to take you to 1,500 total, correct? So if you were to go up another 200 on the general fund side, that would now take it to, what, 770 per ERU on the general fund?
That gets us about $500,000 instead. Right? Instead of 200.
What's your number? What's your number, Russ?
If we went to 1,700, that increases it another $200,000 to $1,921,000 on the general fund, and that would increase that reserve that I just talked about. Let me find that.
Kevin is saying 2,000. Russ is saying around 1,700. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Where are you at, Mr. Truckee?
I'm at 17. I wouldn't go any higher than 17.
Yeah.
Annalise, where are you at?
17 works for me.
Okay, I'll go along with that as well. Let's do that.
Just close to $500,000 more, right?
That gives us $500,000.
Yeah,
I think that'll do it. We'll see where the grants come in. We just opened another grant for the pump station and things, and that's another $500,000.
But this is on the general fund side.
Yes.
Well, let's, yeah.
So that reserve then goes to just short of $400,000. It would be $393,510 in 2025 in what will be a new capital reserve in the general fund.
And
Right.
the amount per ERU for the general fund would be what, Neil?
Well, the combined would be 1,700.
But just the O&M.
Yeah, hang on, let me tell you.
Oh, you said 770 or something.
77729.
Yeah.
For the general fund, 92277, 1500.
No, I don't think they're splitting it.
Are you splitting it between the general and the O and M?
The
Operation
general is the only.
Putting it all in the general fund under O&M.
O and M.
Now, Mr. Case gave us his opinion, and I think I heard him in the background say 1,800. Is there anyone else out there in the audience that has an opinion that they would like to be heard? Anybody online?
Hey, Steve, it's Steve Gunther. The only thing I would say is we're getting crushed as an association with insurance costs. Our residents, if you look over the last 4 years, how much our expenses have gone up, anything you guys can do to hold this down would be appreciated. We're actually driving people out of our neighborhood because they can't afford to live here anymore. So,
well, I understand that, but the port is also seeing those same increases for the whole community.
I understand.
Yeah, I know you do.
I'm okay.
I
I'm
know you
okay.
do.
I'm okay with your one up to 1,500, but going above that at this point in time seems a little bit excessive to me. Just one guy's opinion. Thank you.
But as I was saying, Steve, hopefully we can do the 1,500, but I want us to get the option of going to 17. And you know, when we do this final budget, I would hope that someone from Orchid Cove would be involved in that. And I know that those little condominiums over at the hotel there, if I'm not mistaken, I heard theirs were up to $1,000 a month now for their little 300 square foot things. You know, yes, it's getting expensive. It certainly is. But I just hate the idea of borrowing money when we can take a little bit more each year, slowly, incrementally, without killing somebody. Because next year it comes around and we go, man, we need more money. We got to raise this to $2,000. Now what does that do to Orchid Cove's? You know what I mean? It's I'd rather take a little now in increments and take a whole lot at once, because that's just that's all I wanted to say.
At 1,700. At 1,700, we're still less than we were years ago.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
far less.
And your total rate again for the general fund would only be $577 a year. I think that's still
Still a good deal.
for the quality of this community.
We are working as hard as we can on grants. That's something that we haven't really done well in the past on grants. We have millions of dollars out there in grant requests that are going through. So we're doing a lot of things as much as we can to help with these situations and keep our numbers down too. So,
Will we have any results?
And just as a comment on that, you guys have a huge cash balance too. So, I don't pretend to have the kind of insight that you guys have, because I haven't looked at the budget and the numbers and things like that. I have to defer to you guys. I'm just telling you, it's getting awful darn painful to be able to afford to live in the Port of the Islands for a lot of people these days. And if we can, I just want to bring that perspective. I know there's a lot of wealthy people that live here, but there's also not as wealthy people that we're trying to accommodate as well. That's all. That's my only comment. But again, I respect you guys, and I haven't looked at the numbers, so I assume you'll do the best. Thank you.
when we take the grants and the money in the bank and look forward 5 years, we have an $8 million capital improvement project that we have to accomplish by that time. So I'd say that we're being about as fiscally responsible as we can be looking forward.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, just to get these back on the record for the our minute taker, at $1,700 assessment, that results in a revised budget of total $2,382,996, and that is split between the general fund at 981,368, and the utility fund, 1,405,628, and the ensuing increase in the new capital reserve in the general fund would be $393,510.
Yeah, and if you look at our CIP, $300,000 goes nowhere anymore. I mean, every line item in there is $500,000. It's ridiculous. And you know, at some point here, we need to start beautifying this community. We have put off things for years while we were paying off that water treatment plant. We finally paid that off, and I think it's time that we start beautifying this place and giving some people some amenities and whatnot. I understand, you know, there's a heck of a lot of people who aren't going to be able to live in Florida. That's going to be the long and the short of it, because the insurance rates and everything. I mean, the county's raising our taxes so much. Everything in here is just getting to be outrageously expensive. But I just don't want us to go bargain basement in this community, because we wanted to keep this to be the cheapest place in Florida to live.
If there are no other public comments, then the appropriate motion would be to approve the tentative budget within the amounts that I just read, and authorize the chairman to execute resolution 2024-1, the resolution of the Board of Supervisors of the Port Islands Community Improvement District approving the district's proposed budget for fiscal year 25 and setting a public hearing pursuant to Florida law. Your normal meeting date for that public hearing would be the third Friday in July. That's the 19th. And I would recommend that. You can always continue that, but I think it would be good to have the public hearing be set for that time.
Can we continue this meeting for that first week or two in June then, so that we can deal with so forth?
Yeah, I think what I would recommend, Steve, is that once we have I called their office this morning on my way here. I asked them for several dates during the first 2 weeks in June, and when I have those, I'll share those with this board, and then I'm going to advertise it. I'll re-advertise it as a workshop.
Okay. During that time, would we be allowed to also relook at this budget previous to that, or is that off limits? Is that a one-time, or one subject meeting?
The workshop would be the workshop. If you want to give me further direction with respect to the final budget, your time to do that would be our regular meeting in June, which is the next week.
But again, you can't go up. But then again, you cannot go up from what you're.
Yeah, we're not going up after 1,700 today, but I don't think that.
I think for this year.
I think the board consensus is to lock it in at 1,700 at this point.
I make a motion that we accept the resolution as amended.
Second.
I second it.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
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 No, thank you. Thank you for that. Item B today was just to tell you that we have filed an active, and I spoke to the senior code enforcement officer at the county with respect to the seawall erosion and collapse at the hotel and the exposed utility lines and what appears to be either some electrical service lines or maybe some low voltage lines. I had also used that opportunity to ask if they were aware of some unrelated concerns involving exposed wiring and street lights at the hotel, and he indicated yes. So there are active code compliance cases for both matters. There's a piece of backup here just giving the complaint number that we filed. I didn't know whether you had any additional information for me or not.
Right, I'd like you to know that they did not repair anything in the holes by the seawall. They ordered dirt, they filled them, broke it. right? The pipes are broke. There's different things. Nothing was repaired. Dirt was dumped in to make it look pretty. That was it. So that issue, as far as code goes, you have to let him know that although it appears to be fixed, it was not.
His name, just for our purposes, his name is Jonathan Clark. He's the Chief Code Enforcement Officer, and on my way back to town, I'll relay that additional information or leave a message to that effect.
I have additional information.
Neil?
Yes.
Oh
ma'am.
wait, I sent him an email on that yesterday and said I didn't believe that the piping was fixed, and he is going to look into it.
Perfect.
Okay, so and that was Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he had sent me an email.
Okay, I just wanted the board and the community to know that the case was filed last week, and both apparently I and Ms. Hanson have had conversations with the code enforcement officer who's assigned. I think indirectly I've already addressed the utility rate analysis. Is there any particular time in the first 2 weeks of June that does not work for any members of the board? For a workshop?
First week in June, I'm not there. I'm gone from the 5th to the 10th.
Would you have the ability to participate virtually?
Not on the 7th, no.
Okay, well then I'll try and work around the
Second week of
that day.
June, maybe, might look better.
I'm sorry.
Second week of June might look better.
Okay.
It is
That's
for
good.
me. That'll work for me.
Okay. I'll focus on then the second week. And I'll have Casey in our office send out an email when I get a confirmed date and time from the rate consultants, and then we will also upload that to the community notice section of the website. There will be a separate legal notice run in the newspaper. Also wanted you to know that we have followed up with the Florida Rural Water Association to be an affiliate member. I just think it's to our advantage. This has previously been talked about by the board. Mitch has also said he's aware of the organization as a kind of a trade organization in Tallahassee. I think membership for us is very small. But we've requested an application fee, and we'll be joining that just because I think there's some benefits on that. Final thing I had as a follow-up item was to confirm that the landscape architect, who is Ellen Getz, who is the landscape architect of record for Pelican Bay, Pelican Marsh, Lely Resort, and one of the founders of the Naples Botanical Gardens that you selected a month or two ago, was on site last week. I was not there, so I'd ask Mr. Baird to maybe give us an overview of the site assessment of the meeting that y'all had, just for purposes of the board.
Right, okay, we met last week.
Excuse me. Weren't we going to try to get Mitch's guy out of there sooner towards the beginnings of these meetings?
Yeah, they're here, and they still look patient. We can do that next.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Kevin.
No problem. Okay, so, yes, we met, we walked the entries of the 3 locations, which would be the Newport side, the K side, over at Orchid Cove. And looks like most of the emphasis, what she was looking at was around the big sign in front of the old retail office there. And one of the things she mentioned was moving the sign up, moving the actual sun, the picture of the sun up higher, that would be, and then more lights in some of the banyan trees over here on the K side, removing all those old overgrown shrubs. She said she was going to try to get a report together for her fees for today, but I don't think she did.
I think the sign is a regulated height. I don't know if you can move it.
Well, I don't know either.
Yeah, but that's
Something.
the signs in this county.
So, it was just gathering the information and.
The board did authorize me to enter into a preliminary design agreement to develop some concept plans.
Right.
And I presume that the fee proposal that she will send back to us is to do that. The schematic level drawings or concept plans preliminarily, and some, sort of inspiration boards and pictures of whatever the recommended plant palette is going to be, and I'll keep you posted on that. I have not seen a proposal yet, but if y'all were out here last week and we need to encourage them a little bit, we'll follow up on that.
Right, okay.
Kevin, as long as we're at this, do you think that we should get together with Mr. Soto and revisit his billing? Because things have changed. Just for instance, the K's signs, are way less work now, and so forth. And if we were able to get the county commission to take over that middle, what kind of a difference we would say. But I'm just wondering if we should just revisit his billing right now to make sure that everything's where it should be. We haven't done that, I don't believe. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's a good idea.
And I'll have Kevin Carter of my staff. Kevin's not here today, but I'll have him work with Mr. Baird to review the scope of work and maybe some recent, history of increases or something like that. I can tell you he's probably had some commodity increases on the mulch and fertilizer side, but I'll make a note. We'll have the two Kevins then work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a note for Mr. Soto, from Orchid Cove entrance south, probably 150 feet or so, the median there was dry until the rain, but it's killing the plants in the median, so there's a sprinkler problem, I believe, in that area. Should take a look at that before all the plants are dead.
Okay.
Kevin,
Well,
Kevin, what about also the land across from Orchid Cove there? It seems like it's not getting mowed very often.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, this is Steve Gunther. I guess Orchid Cove, I'm on the board. That'll be mowed shortly. It's been brought to our attention. That is our land to mow. We have to pay on a per basis, and we work with Soto to do that, but it's in the schedule to get with them in the next few days and get that done.
And then will it be done on a little bit more of a timely basis?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, typically we've kind of it's one of the things that kind of got away from us this year with everything going on. But yes, we do it on a regular basis. That's the intention.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes, it's Joe Levy at Windward. Now that we have the new lot on the entrance of K's, is there a possibility of maybe getting a proposal to do sprinklers there so the grass looks green and looks nice instead of just, I know it's mowed, but it doesn't look as inviting as it could be if we had some watering over there.
Certainly. There's no reason we couldn't get Soto to give us a number on that, or even 2 or 3 ideas on that. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it looks kind of dead there, the grass, and it would be nice if it was green. Yeah, and it just, when you drive into the entrance, kind of abandoned, looks like an abandoned lot, but now that the CID owns it, we should kind of, water it, maybe a few more trees or plants. That's all. Thank you.
That reminds me, there was a dock installer out there the other day, and they were loading off of that. Kevin and I went and talked to him and mentioned to him that in the past that we got paid up to $1,000 when they were doing that. He gave me his card. I was going to bring that today, but I'm not there, of course. They wanted to suggest giving us $5,000 and use it per year and use it for when they needed it. So with that in mind, and then of course the legal ease, the papers that they would have to sign and make sure that so that we don't have a liability problem there, and make sure that they're not going to hurt our seawall, all those types of things. But with that in mind, it's possible that we could we could write some agreements with these dock people and cover the cost of our sprinkler system.
Yeah, on that point, I have I'll call it a template for a license agreement I mentioned last time. If I can get the details and the information, and I would suggest if we have multiple vendors wanting to utilize that they be non-exclusive, in that any coordination, scheduling have to be coordinated with the district staff. So we don't have two of them showing up at the same time and yelling at each other. So if I can get that information from you, Steve, and then I need more detail on Southern Exposure, and they were gonna be 1,000, and this new entity, you said they would pay 5,000, Steve?
Yeah,
A year?
for a year. Yeah. And this is, I've never seen this guy before, but I understand he used to work here a lot. I think it was Kramer, I believe, but he was telling me that they did a lot of the docks on Stella Maris South and whatnot. He used to have a lot of history here, but I'm going to guess that he's still not going to, use that a whole heck of a lot. But it would be nice if we could, do like Joe was suggesting and, spruce the place up, but get somebody else to help us cover the cost of it. That's the other thing. At one time I mentioned that possibly we could put in a couple of bathrooms there. I would sure like to get an estimate of what something like that would cost. And I approached Mr. Soto on that, and I said, well, I would envision us having a keypad on the doors to that only the residents would have. But I said, his crews are out there with no bathrooms. Would he be open to the idea of us letting his crews use that in exchange for them maintaining it, cleaning it, and doing all that sort of stuff? And he said he would be happy to do that. So there again, that's another possibility if people are interested in doing that.
I'll make that note, and with that, that's the end of my report, and if it's your discretion, we'll go down and do utility operations in the April summary.
I just got a couple questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Come on up, Mitch.
For you, real quick. You were talking about addressing that insurance. We had depreciated costs covered, but not replacement cost coverage. Did we change that, or is it?
We will do that later this summer when we get the application for the renewal, and we will evaluate the schedule of values at that time. I can look at the schedule of values now if you'd like for me to, just to see where we're at.
Well, I just want to make sure we change it. That's all.
Yeah, the current policy runs through the end of September.
That's what we agreed upon, and that we're going to change it.
I'll follow up. I'll get you the current schedule of values just so you have that as for informational purposes.
And the other question was, those properties I gave you that were listed under Premier versus your management company, is that, guys looked at that at all?
I've not contacted, what I can do though is contact Vicki Downs. I know Vicki and the property appraiser's office. I'll just send her an email and all those properties that the contact person be Neil's office. You're fine with that?
Yeah.
I'll follow up with that.
Okay.
Promise?
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Go to the bullpen.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Matt.
Matt with Florida Utility Solutions, here to give our monthly report. All of our wastewater plant requirements were met. All of our water distribution requirements were met. Reuse system is functioning properly for outgoing pressure of the plant. Station on the canal is running on 2 pumps, and it does work.
Oh,
Go ahead.
no, it wasn't.
He's talking to somebody else in
No.
New York.
Annalise, you're on. Annalise.
I have to leave the meeting.
Okay.
I'll try and get back.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Good luck.
All right.
Sorry.
So we received and treated 2.08 million gallons of wastewater in April. We produced and distributed 3.5 million gallons of water, and we distributed 9.09 gallons of reuse water in April. We hauled 28,000 gallons of sludge from the plant. No odor complaints. We had a couple small line breaks, like backflow preventers and meter leaks and stuff like that. We installed 2 new meters. We read 857 meters and we read 16 of them. We used 590 gallons of chlorine. We did all of our pump station inspections, odor control checks. We repaired and serviced some analyzer equipment. Work is continuing on the plant upgrades that were previously approved. We started to clean out the plant for the upgrades, drain tanks and your solids. And we repaired well pump 3. It was decided it didn't want to work, and we convinced it to work again. We repaired high service pump 3. It was it just needed a little bit of rebuilding. We tested the pump station on the canal, just to double check that it's good, it's working well. We repaired a non-working reuse pump that was caused by a problem with the automatic transfer panel that it was received its power from, and we made some adjustments to the SCADA to help everything run smoothly. Overall, we had no incidents or OSHA-relatable incidents, and we conducted all of our safety training.
Matt, one quick question. Have we ever had one of our meters proved to be inaccurate yet since we put them in?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's all good news. So that was good money. All right, thank you. The other thing, Matt, how about the chlorinators that Lisa was working on over there on Newport Drive?
Local coordinator.
I emailed her an estimate that we had received previously from Home Montez. I think maybe the prior board looked into it at one point. I was able to get that information.
We had looked into it before.
Oh, okay.
It kind of got tabled, but we're back into it again.
Okay, yeah, I sent that over to her. Has a breakdown of everything, cost, and where they, estimated it should be installed and everything like that.
And I've got 2 quick questions. Are you guys backing us up on the final shut-off notices and the door hangers? Are we coordinating that with y'all and Kevin Carter?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Just for the board's information, we did send updated delinquent statements of account through Muni Billing. Your current policy requires me to give 10 days advance notice of shut-off of certain accounts and physically hang a doorknob hanger on there telling them, was it 48 hours before the final shut-off date?
Yeah, typically.
So we may get some blowback on that, or you may. I don't know when the actual dates of the shut-off are, but we are doing that in accordance with your policy and the procedures that are outlined there.
In our policy and procedures, do we have raising that to 8% interest on late monies not paid, or?
There is a late fee
monthly
and a reconnection fee if it goes delinquent. It's part of your rate base.
I think the law says we can go to 18% and charge a monthly late fee. So.
I don't know, but I'll pursue that a little bit. And then I had a person call me. I did not get the name. They wanted to know what we do with our sludge and whether it was in cake form. And I said, no, I thought it was liquid, and we use a licensed hauler, but I don't know where they take it. Could you at least help, or do you know where you're
I know
hauling?
what they take. They take it back to their own processing facility in Fort Myers. There it's run through a belt press, separated. The cake goes to Okeechobee to the landfill.
Okay. Just, I had somebody, and I didn't have the answer, and I said I'd be at the meeting today and I would inquire.
As long as that came up, Mitch. A while back, we talked about you had bought a press.
Yes, we're currently running that at other facilities. We plan to bring it and run it here just to see how it does. And it cuts about 30% off of your bill, of your hauling bill.
Okay, so when would we see that coming this way?
So we'll probably run it when we need to haul sludge again.
Probably in 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks. And we'll call you if you want to come and see how it works. It really just separates it right on site. The liquid goes back into the plant, and then we just haul the cake off and take it to Okeechobee.
Perfect.
So,
I like it.
Matt, you and Mitch are doing a wonderful job, and thank you for that.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Did we change the deposit on like seasonal people, the renters that come in and whatnot?
To do that, we would need to have a hearing to change the rates, fees, charges.
Okay, so when do we want to do that?
You may want to wait until after Raftellus comes back. I don't know. As opposed to doing one at a time and.
Now, make a mental note that when they're here, and if we are going to be publishing a rate change, that we need to incorporate a renter's deposit change in there as well.
Okay.
I did personally look at the accounts receivable list that was coordinated with these guys. The one large outstanding bill is like $2,800, $2,300, something like that. We did a little further research on that. Apparently that was someone who had ordered a new meter installation on a vacant lot and has not paid the district. I was just concerned that if somebody that, was here and we're getting ready to shut their water off and that somehow there was a problem on the billing side, but it was a valid bill and charge for a new meter set that had never been reimbursed.
So there should be a lien on it then?
There will be at the appropriate time, yeah.
Now, you
Thanks, guys.
you got the check this morning that for that house at Joe's building, correct?
Your wife handed me a check. I was more focused on some peanut butter cookies, but I'll look at it.
Yeah, that was for that new meter hookup on Kay's Drive. He was under a time crunch to get it done. We just made it happen, and he got us a check right away.
Okay, thank you. I have it, and I'll turn it into our accounting staff when I get to the office.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. You too.
Matt, I got one call last night about a meter leaking over on Cage Drive.
Okay.
Or not leaking, but running. They got a bill. And I'd like to explain it to you, maybe run over.
Sure.
Could we, I give you a call, could we run over there or something?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, I'll call you after.
Okay. Thank you.
And just while I'm talking about liens and the water and everything, that blowout that they had over, it was doing 600 gallons a day over the whole town?
An hour.
Yes.
An hour? Whatever it was. Anyway.
Minute.
Yeah. So that we charged, it was a $2,800 bill.
20, I pulled the bill, I have a copy.
But I mean, is that, again,
$2,300.
that was the hotel's responsibility?
It is,
So
yeah.
we put another lien on them too for that?
Well, I'm gonna try to collect it because Tom's here right now.
Yeah,
Matt,
I don't actually know the status of the hotel's account. My understanding was that they do a decent job of paying their utility bill, but if there's a problem there, I just need somebody to share that with me, or I'll make an
well, we
inquiry.
have to make sure that that gets paid. It wasn't a utility bill, it's a repair.
Okay.
When that leak was fixed, did you notice that on the rewater?
Probably not. I mean, I can see if our analytics go back that far, but I don't look at the screens all day like the operator does.
Okay, I was just curious if that came up because that was such a big leak.
If it was a repair, then I'll also note and have Kevin Hunter of my staff follow up on that, make sure they have been billed, and if not, or if they have not paid, then that would be a separate item we won't put a lien on.
Yeah, we just have to stay on top of that right now because of what we're dealing with. So.
Approximately, when did that occur?
Gosh, when did you fix that? A couple weeks, 3 weeks ago?
Last month?
Was it before the last meeting?
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
I can look it up and text you the exact date.
Send it to him.
Okay.
Yeah, just send me a text, or text Kevin Carter directly, and we'll coordinate with our accounting staff to make sure the bill has been issued.
It has been issued. I have a copy of it, and I was going to walk it into the.
How much was it, roughly?
2,800.
2,300. Okay. Got it. Thanks, Mitch.
Yep.
Item 6 today is just miscellaneous correspondence for our record. The supervisor of elections is required to send me a notice of the total number of registered voters in the district. It is part of your backup materials today. Just for what it's worth, there are 684 active registered voters that are within the boundaries of the district. Our staff has placed a separate legal notice as a result of this in the newspaper to announce the qualifying period for candidates in the next election cycle. And our records indicate that districts 1, 3, and 5 terms will expire, and those seats will need to be re-elected for the new term. The qualifying period for interested candidates runs from June the 10th until the 14th.
Noon of each day. Noon, June 10th, and noon, June 14th.
Yeah, it is very important that Mr. Baird, Ms. Hanson, and
Thanks. Bye.
Mr. Kish take steps to qualify with the supervisor's office. And if you need any assistance in that regard, Dave Carpenter is the qualifying officer there, been there for 100 years.
Yeah.
He is a good guy. But if anybody needs any assistance from our office, just please let us know. The financial statements are next, and I'll just kind of do an overview of these, given the time we've already spent on the budget. But as of mid-year, or the end of March, the district had a combined $4,650,000 in cash on hand at month's end, as you will see on the balance sheet there. Additionally, there are fixed assets in fixtures and equipment and associated infrastructure here of just about 15 million. Depreciation is about 8 million. So the adjusted net property on the fixed asset side, 9,030,000. Total assets of the district at mid-year 2024, $13.7 million. There are $83,000 in payables that are shown on the liability portion. If you look on the next page on the income statement, you will see that during the month of March, there was $17,000 in interest earnings. That continues to be a really robust number for us. The year-to-date revenues are almost $100,000 at mid-year. We're forecasting that it will be approximately $200,000 by year-end in interest earnings. There were about $9,000 in non-ad valorem assessments that were received just prior to their being delinquent on April the 1st. I checked yesterday. Last month, there were $61,000 in additional assessments that were received during the month of April, and there will be a similar amount in May, right before they go to the tax deed sale. Of that 61,000, about 24,000 goes into the general fund. The other 2/3 of that, roughly 40,000, get deposited on the account of the utility fund. So a good March, a better April, and some of those will continue into May. Year to date, assessment revenues are about 83%. They'll be closer to 90-91% when I see you guys again next month. Expenses are all in line with the budget. The total overall for both funds, we continue to be about $150,000 under budget year to date combined. That's really a function of just not having to spend some of the contingency items that we do have that are there. So favorable to budget, expense and revenues, relatively strong cash position for the district, and I'll stop there and see if you have any specific questions.
You said our fund balance, we had
4 million. $4,650,000 approximately. Additional 26,000 in prepaid items like insurance premiums and things, but the actual cash is 4,650,000.
Is that down from last year, from earlier in the year?
It's 4,500,000.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we're running budget-wise.
Yeah,
We haven't spent it.
I know, but I'm just wondering budget-wise, we're doing well this year.
yes, we are favorable to the budget to the tune of about 151,000 a year to date.
Just make sure that we're keeping our promise.
Yep. And I think it's unlikely that any of the taxes will not be picked up at the auction this year, but that auction is imminent. It's usually held the end of May, isn't it, Tony?
Oh, the advertisement, I think, just appeared, so I think after May 31st.
So even for those taxes that for existing owners, be they commercial or residential, this particular community has got a pretty good history of an investor picking those taxes up at the auction. In the event that a certificate would go unpurchased, I'll know that later this summer, but I think it's unlikely.
All right, and we are looking, I know we talked a while back about changing the way we do things with renters and things, that before they could switch the utilities out of the renter's name, they'd have to make us whole.
We would need a rule amendment to the current rule, but that's possible. Municipalities are prohibited from doing that. Interesting. But under the statute, but the district has the ability, in my opinion, to modify the rules to provide for that. So I'd suggest we wait till we have a comprehensive, utility analysis that tell us, because whether or not they are going to recommend any revisions also.
All right, just so we keep that in mind, because I think it's easier to put the rules in place than it is to chase the money and try to collect monies that aren't getting paid. So,
Oh, yes.
No other questions?
If I might make a suggestion, if on that, I would like to see us do some type of a rule change that ultimately makes the owner of the property ultimately responsible for the non-payments, because that's part of the risk that you do as a landlord.
That can be part of it. Again, part of the comprehensive amendment dealing with tenants or other, yes. That's on my radar from the last board meeting. And again, there's a statute that says cities can't do that, but doesn't say the districts cannot.
Correct. Well, thank you.
We'll need a motion second to accept the financials.
I'll make a motion, we accept the financials.
Second it.
All those in favor?
That
Aye.
concludes my report.
Aye.
For today, takes us down to the attorney's report. We're on item 9. Tony?
Yes, I handed out to each board member a copy, and I apologize for not emailing you, a copy of the public petition that I submitted on the district's behalf in consultation with your chairman. That was sent in May 7th, and I requested that there be scheduled for May 28th county commission meeting. The policy they have is you request it at least 13 days ahead of the meeting that you want to appear. I didn't hear anything, so I wrote back, and they said, we're evaluating it. And then yesterday, we received an email, Neil and I both, that, which is interesting. Usually, they just place them on the agenda. But the email that came back on behalf of the county manager was, let me find that. It says scrolling down on iPads is way different.
They want me to come to their office and explain myself before they put me on the agenda.
Yeah, it says the county manager would like to meet with you and discuss your public petition requests before concluding her review/scheduling of the petition, and would appreciate a few potential dates/times that you would be available to come to her office on the second floor of Building F. And so Steve and Neil and I will find dates and send them out hopefully today to the county manager's office. Obviously, it appears to me, and Neil and I's experience, they want to talk about items out beforehand. I think we may have caught them with some issues they were not anticipating. I don't know. Neil, is that your assessment of it?
Yeah, and Steve, just for what it's worth, I have an unrelated meeting with the deputy county manager on Monday, and one of the issues that is on my list of things to talk to him about is the vacant North Hotel site.
Yes.
That you had asked me to do. And so perhaps what I can do is answer some of their questions on these other issues related to payment in lieu funds and a desire to transfer the landscape maintenance authority for US 41 to the county. I can run through that. If she still wants to have, she being the county manager, if she still wants to have an actual meeting with us, either virtually or in person, I'll know after I see him on Monday.
I wasn't planning on being back to the port until the 26th. And basically I'm getting back there to go to that county commission meeting, but as far as going and meeting her in person, you know, if they want to give me a call, I can talk to them on the phone. I actually was going to try to set up a meeting with LaCastro before this so that I wouldn't be ambushing him at the meeting, but it doesn't appear that that's probably going to happen.
Well, I'll just relay that then, that while, you know, that you're out of town and while you're willing to have a conversation, it would just need to be a phone conversation. But in advance, I will at least outline or reiterate the three issues that we have with it.
Well, there's five. I guess the question is, should I wait until Neil talks to the deputy county manager before responding?
If you want to, go ahead and respond, but
once I get some dates from you,
on
Steve.
background, I'll go ahead and I'm meeting with Dan Rodriguez on Monday, and one of the issues has to do with the port. So if anything comes out of that, I'll let you know.
Okay, and there are extra copies I left on the table. Any members of the public want to see the request. But it seems like we have their attention.
Don't you find it kind of interesting that you asked to be on the agenda and you have to go and explain yourself to them before the meeting, before they'll put you on the agenda? Isn't that seem pretty odd?
I've never had that happen before. Let me just put it that way.
That's not required. I don't know what their intent is, but that policy speaks for itself. You're entitled to appear. What they will usually do is defer back to staff and then, you know, consider action if necessary at a subsequent meeting. But no, you have every right to appear, and you don't have to explain yourself.
Yeah, just put it this way, I think I've never had a public petition where it's not been placed on the agenda and not having to, so I think we have their attention.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think you've got their attention, which is good.
Yes.
Mission accomplished.
Steve and I will give some dates and times, and Neil.
Yeah,
and it can be remote or Zoom, Steve, if you can. And then Neil also have the conversation on Monday, so hopefully there's progress and movement.
But here again, we're going to be paying for legal fees, and then we're going to be inconveniencing Neil for what?
To have a conversation, bring all the, you know, again, that's what they were requesting.
Maybe he'll find out at his meeting.
Yeah. Hopefully, because Neil already has a meeting, so I think by him writing that.
I do like your idea, Steve, just as a courtesy, if you want to give the commissioner, you know, a call or speak to his aide to.
I will. I'll do that. I think that's fair.
And we don't want to send mixed signals to him.
Yeah, he's been on.
I agree.
He's been on all the emails when the public petition went in. Commissioner LaCastro was on it. He's on the more recent one also.
What have you heard from him?
I've had response from county staff, not from Commissioner LaCastro.
What have you heard from our
Commissioner? No response.
Nothing. Imagine that.
Doesn't he know he's got 700 votes out here he can get?
734.
734.
Or not. Is he
I
running
can't-
unopposed?
So
Is he
far,
running
yes.
unopposed?
He's running on a poll.
So far, yes.
Steve, you don't want to be a county commissioner, take my word for it.
I was already threatened with that, and I said, no way.
Okay. Tony, do you have anything else?
Yes, a couple things. I need to get with, Kevin and I have not yet gotten together due to other matters to talk about the, no trespassing and all that signage on the property the district just acquired. I would like to have before the board at its next meeting, the 2 license agreements, if we're gonna have 2 vendors. So if I can get the detail for the dock usage on that property. So if I can get all
Southern
the
exposure.
Marina, if I can have the contact information for them, and then Steve, if you can send your contact information, then I guess the question becomes, the one that Steve has been approached by is for $5,000 for 1 year. Southern exposure, would that be on a per use basis, or is it 1,000 per year or 5,000 a year for them also? So that's
I think we could we can give them the option, I guess.
Okay.
Somebody mentioned to me that Southern Exposure he thought was sold or maybe quitting or something else. So I don't know. They were also out there one day loading a few things on, and when I talked to them about it, they weren't very excited about having to pay us anything. So,
Steve, he was out there another day since you talked about that. I took a picture of him out there loading Southern exposure.
And so the idea,
Because he was told that the biggest thing we needed is his insurance, and he has to sign an agreement in case somebody gets hurt there or something with loading stuff, or he breaks the seawall. And he was supposed to get that, then I saw him out there another day doing that, and he acted like he knew nothing about it.
yeah.
okay, then we
may.
need to send him a letter then and tell him that to discontinue doing that until we get this paperwork in place, because that's not how it's supposed to go.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I think also, I know you don't like proliferation of signs, but no trespassing sign.
They're already in place.
Are they already in place on the seawall, the dock? Okay, very good.
Both times, right, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay.
Someone
If I can
pulled
get
one
some-
out after a couple days and threw it in the water.
Yeah, we fixed it out and put it in deeper.
People are amazing. Rather ask for forgiveness than permission. With regards to we're preparing, we had some family issues with one of our attorneys, so we haven't finalized all our discovery. I've drafted some discovery on the Calteague litigation. They filed their answer and some affirmative defenses, which I think are not legitimate. So we'll just keep pushing forward to get the court to have expedited hearings on that. Prep Mac, nothing further. We may do some discovery though, because that's just sort of sitting
When
there.
can we just take that off the books?
Yeah, that's,
Prep Mac?
yeah, we gotta get rid of that.
It's still there.
It's gone. Yeah, but-
Again, they're not pushing it forward, they're the plaintiff, and it costs more every time for the district, for every time we have to take action.
So you're comfortable with just leaving it sit there?
Yes, for a number of reasons, and I can talk to you one-on-one, Mr. Watt.
One other thing, I'm sorry if this is out of order, but I've been asking for the marine ERCs, whether or not Prep and bought enough. Did you ever deal with that, Tony?
I don't, yeah, I think the problem is, from the standpoint of the way the documents were conveyed to the management company deals, we're not able to really ascertain that from those records. And so I've looked through mine, haven't found it, I'll keep looking, but the difficulty is the way the documents were provided to Neil's office. Kevin's looked, I believe, twice, high and low twice, Kevin Carter.
What? Well, the documents that I've seen alluded to that they needed, I believe, an additional 14 ERCs. So why don't we use that and ask them to show us proof that they bought the 14 ERCs? And as well as we're talking about that, I would like to set a price on our ERCs. Put that in our records that an ERC right now should be worth $20,000.
Yeah, what I will do is, what I suggest is that what you may want to do is when we do the notice of public hearing, as far as the allocation of ERCs, reflect the ERCs that should be there by virtue of that site development plan that occurred in the past. And then we can also then talk with the rate consultants about the other aspect.
Okay, I do not want to let this go because he's suing us over ERCs now for years, and I'm going, he's been sitting on 14 ERCs that he never paid for. That's a substantial amount of money, and we are just overlooking it, and I don't think that's what we should continue to do.
Okay. Again, the question is whether or not we can use the pending litigation to try to force that or not. I'll look at it, but I don't believe.
Yeah, it's not only the 14, cost of the 14, but the O&M and things that we collect on that for
Yes.
3 years.
So that's something also that might be able to be taken care of during the public hearing process on your allocation.
When do we set the valuation of what an ERC is? Because I believe in our procedure book right now, it's listed at something a little over $4,000.
Well, I think we'll take a look at it and also get with the consultant on that. I think that would be helpful.
Let's do that ASAP if you would.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything further?
No, nothing further.
I think that takes us down to supervisor requests. There was no old business or engineer's report.
I'm sorry, Neil, I'm sorry. Tony, I had one more thing.
Yes, sir.
We spoke at the last meeting about the ERCs on the companion lots, whether or not those ERCs are remaining on those properties, or are they going back into the CID's pool? You were going to look into that.
Yeah, what I didn't, I apologize, I did not go, I need to go back and look at last year's final budget where you had your listing of how that took place, and we'll discuss that at the next board meeting about doing that. Yeah, the double lots were, they combined it for
We had
purposes.
talked about at the last meeting that if they combine and they don't pay their ERC or O&Ms and things.
If they only connection for one, then they only have one. That was part of the discussion.
They lose that one, it's gone. If they're not gonna pay for it, they don't get to keep it.
Yeah, I think what I'll do, I'll work with Mr. Chucky on that, while the policy recommendation is how to handle that.
And that's the other reason. That's the other reason for putting our ERCs up to $20,000, which is where I believe that they should be at. Because otherwise, like when I was looking at the ERCs that are on that property that I still have left, and I was going to drop them, and I dropped it down to 2 ERCs. And my whole reasoning behind that was, if I dropped those ERCs in 2 years, I could buy them back for the same amount of money as the assessments were on it. So there's no incentive to keep an ERC if you can buy them back cheaper. So that's my point for that.
Understood.
Supervisors.
I have one item that I wanted to at least mention on behalf of Ms. Hanson. Staff is working with your engineer on a proposed new home at 140 Wilderness K. It's a fairly significant home, and I'd just say at this point that it has a significant amount of impervious area proposed, and has at least 3 different encroachments into the rear yard drainage easement, including 2 sets of poured permanent concrete stairs and a large amount of fill and some culvert pipe where they would like to enclose that swale. But suffice it to say that Ms. Hanson and the engineer have some initial concerns and have requested additional information. I would think that she would want you to be aware of that. So we're working with her in that regard.
Are the engineers ever gonna be here? I mean, what are our agreement with them? Did that include, monthly meetings or not?
On those occasions where there's something in final to the way that we had worked with Mr. McNamee, but rather than pay them to just sit here throughout the, there was always concerns that we were being nickel and dime by the former civil engineer and multiple levels of their staff who were reading agendas and minutes, and it's sort of only here as necessary.
So like when we would
We have
go,
him actively engaged in that matter, and he's also working on issues both with the FEMA grants, as well as been feeding information to the utility rate consultant on
Yes.
updated capital improvement
Are you
plans.
thinking about this issue here?
what?
The wilderness cable?
He's involved.
Yeah.
When it comes
Yeah,
to
I
the
just
point
figured-
where we have a proposed acceptable plan, then it would be submitted to this board. He would be here to make a presentation. I'm just telling you in advance that both Ms. Hanson and the engineer have some concerns with the extent to which they want to develop that lot.
Some concerns over there.
Now,
Yes.
we're making sure that we keep the costs of working on this project on his nickel, right?
That's correct. And that was relayed to his architect in Boca Raton in advance.
Thank you.
Any other supervisor requests?
I have one issue at the hotel, that pile. They have a pile of
Debris.
debris. Good word.
Well, I like seeing the pile grow. That means they're doing something to clean up, but they need to also take care of that pile of debris as well.
That's when I was over
It's
there.
huge.
If they had intentions on hauling that away, and the guy building that pile has no intentions on hauling it away.
Wow.
He said the hotel would have to do that, and, so I don't know,
Is it construction debris or horticultural debris?
Landscape debris.
waste, landscape debris.
Old
Ne-
tree fall.
Neil, could you just do a county complaint on that? Because
Yeah.
it isn't going to get done unless we do something.
No, I'll get a better idea where it is, and I'll go by there so that.
Right by the dumpsters out front.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
Right by the highway.
Okay.
While you're on county complaints, when we were doing the landscape walk around the old retail office, we noticed that there's an air conditioning unit that's hidden back in the bushes there, and that the wires are exposed, and if you follow the wires, I mean, they're disconnected from the non-working air conditioning unit and just hanging out there. And you could follow them up underneath the sidewalk up to the disconnect, which is shut off, but there's no lock there, so you can actually, a kid could turn that on and light himself up.
That's at the old guard gate?
It's the old retail office, right as you're pulling into, on the Newport side.
Okay, I don't live here, so again, I'll go by there and look at that area, but.
Used to be
off
a
of
real
Newport.
estate.
Real estate office, so probably we're gonna fix the landscaping.
Right.
Another question is, they originally gave the electrical contractor $5,000 deposit for putting in the power on, for the aerators. Someone was going to look into whether or not we ever got a refund on the unused money. Did that ever happen?
He's talking about the 3 ponds up here. He's talking about those 3 ponds.
We gave them $5,000 advance, and they only ended up putting in a few feet of conduit, and that's all they ended up doing before we stopped that project. And I wanted us to get a refund on what the unused portion, but nobody seems to be heading down that direction.
It's like 2 years ago. I don't think that's going to happen. That second pond, we still haven't had it. Nobody's taking care of the weeds and whatever those things are growing there. They're like 6-8 feet tall.
The second one?
I'll have Kevin Carter,
Just the second pond.
get you a better answer on that, Steve.
Okay. Kevin Carter, or I mean Barrett, can you mention about what we found over there at storage on that building? Now, I went and talked to a guy about sandblasting that, but he doesn't sandblast here anymore, but maybe you want to share that with the board?
The buildings he's talking about, they're the older concrete structures that are over at the water plant. And we're talking about where we're storing the generators off-site right now. I think for a very little money, we could actually put a garage door in one side of that building, and they say it has to be higher elevation. Well, they've got pads in there right now where there's apparently been some kind of equipment in the past. And we could raise that floor and then use that for generator storage, because the building's ample of space to probably put 3 or 4 generators in.
Okay.
We're working, indirectly, we're working on that because with the FEMA grants and the FEMA generators, they have a level to which those have to be stored.
Yeah,
Right, to a certain flood level.
I'm aware of that.
All right, and we're working on that flood level right now to raise the well pipes and things too.
Yep.
And our engineers, Kevin was bringing that to the engineers. And we were hoping to get something back as to what that level is that we have to raise it to. If it's like 4 or 5 feet,
Oh, yeah.
it might be historical generator.
Yeah, I think you could still probably pull it about 4 or 5 feet, that'd be pushing it. Because literally,
Egress.
the ramp that it'd take to get the 4 to 5 feet high.
Yeah, I got it. I'll add that to Kevin's list. Okay.
One last thing, the handouts that you gave today, can you somehow get those on the website? So that everybody, that used to be one of my issues when I sat in the audience, that I would come in and Cal would give out handouts, and you would reference different pages and whatnot, but the citizenship never was able to see that. I would love to be able to get that on our website before the meetings, but if not, maybe after the meetings. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, Kevin usually helps coordinate that, and we already have notices going out of the upcoming election and the qualifying period, and we can easily add copies of the revised tentative budget so that people can see that 2 months in advance of the public hearing in July.
Very good. I like that.
Okay,
I got a couple more items.
go ahead.
Okay, on landscaping, we have a report from 171 Newport in that area where they were having some grouting in the meridian, and talked to Soto, and he had recently changed a valve in that area, so that's been taken care of. And I will mention to him about the irrigation there on Union Road. And then also, we've been noticing that there's a lot of car traffic by the smashed down grass going off the road where they're pulling off and fishing. We put the no passing signs in. I don't know who it was that pulled that sign out, whether it was fishermen or
There was a truck in there
prosecutors. And so we decided that, talked to Soto about planting a row of luces all the way down through there, where the only access to the property is going to be off of Case Drive. So he's supplied us 2 invoices for planting the calusas. It's $96.90, and to irrigate the same calusa line is 390 something linear feet would be $1,700. So I make the motion that we approve both of those.
What's the total?
I second that.
$96.90 and $1,700.
9,690.
Yes.
1,700.
He figures that those calusas will be 4 feet high by the end of the year, and then they would probably go get them up to around 8 feet, which you could still be able to look over it from the highway, but it will help reduce the sound and also stop the vehicles and the people from accessing through that. And it would look damn good, and especially if we were now, if we were looking at irrigating those calusas, maybe we can roll that right into irrigating the whole site.
Any discussion on that? Have a motion? Make a motion?
Yeah, and Steve seconded it.
Okay. All those in favor? The total
Aye.
is 11,370. Aye.
Alright.
Aye.
All right, Pat?
Anything else, Kevin?
Nope, that's it.
Any other supervisors?
Yeah, I just have some questions. Maybe Orchid Cove knows of something. I mean, all these vacant properties, we got the one on Case Drive, big triangle area that was supposed to be a clubhouse and pool, and all the empty lots that are in Orchid Cove. Are we going anywhere with that? Is it, I mean, who owns them? I don't, are we? The county has them all?
This is Steve Gunther, Orchid Cove. The lots in Orchid Cove are currently owned by the county. They went back when the builder actually couldn't pay his taxes, so that's how they got them. So they've been escheated, and they're actually up for sale right now.
Maybe we could, well, we're asking them to give us that north property over there. Maybe we should be asking them to have the CID take that as well. We're not getting any assessments on it anyway, but there again, you can have some input as to what's going to go on there at some point.
Well,
What do you think, Steve?
The
Well,
only thing I'm concerned
to answer your
about is
question,
the type of
Steve Mack.
building.
Oh, go ahead.
I said my only concern is the way you probably have your property listed or whatever the covenants in there, the buildings have to be built the exact same as what's here. But that type of building is not being done anymore. I mean, maybe they'd have to rework their covenants a little bit to the buildings that look the same but aren't constructed the same. I don't know what you guys would have to do.
The entire project was recorded as a condominium as opposed to phased. You might have to go back and amend or unwind the condominium document in order to come up with a different sort of scheme for the type of product that is more popular or current and that sort of thing. So that might be a legal issue that would need to be addressed as to how would you go about amending the condominium document, and whether that would also require, in certain cases, the consent and joinder of mortgage holders, which can be an almost impossible thing to do.
Of course.
Yeah, Neil,
But
again, if I can comment on it, that is a possibility. We do have covenants on that they have to be built to match, which I think is a good thing. The reason that hasn't happened is that the financials to do that just don't make sense from a building and a construction point of view. So I think we'll leave it as it is. Yeah, we could go back and revise our documents. Actually, right now, they're still part of our HOA agreement, and they're basically phantom units that we have to deal with. And it would be nice to clean that up. But at this point in time, it doesn't seem appropriate to do that because it seems like it's possible they still could be built. But I think this is something, I don't know, it's a little bit Orchid Cove specific, and I'd like to take it offline and not have it in a public meeting. There's some things going on that we could talk about offline on that, if possible, if we want to explore some opportunities and then come back with a combined proposal on how we work together to go forward with that, if you don't mind.
Steve, I'm hearing what you're saying now. Would Orchid Cove not be in favor of the Port of the Islands trying to get that under their control?
Well, there's some things in process right now. Again, that's why I want to take it offline. That I'd rather talk to you about offline, and then and then we can explore that possibility.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking at it as if we could get it from the county for free, and somebody does want to develop it, is another possible cash influx for the port. But
yeah, and that's kind of what our preference would be. There's two parcels there. One of the parcels we'd rather see not developed. I understand it would be great for people to make money on that, but we're trying to preclude that at this point in time because it would impact our community in probably a negative way.
But there again, so if the Port of the Islands had it, and the people of Orchid Cove decide that they want to leave that vacant, then it would easily be able to be done.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, let's take it offline, Steve. I'll give you a call and we can talk about it if you don't mind.
All good.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, because I just thought increased number of units reduces the Orchid Cove's overhead, spread it. And I have one other thing, because they were talking about insurance, and I know the answer to this is probably no. But like you're reviewing the CID's insurance, right? Wind, hurricane, all that stuff. The condominiums and the different associations, they couldn't piggyback on any of that or see if they could get a better rate from any?
Probably not, because we're a governmental entity.
different corporate entity in that case.
I figured it was going to be no.
They're bad though. I've seen them as high as 40% increases on the property side.
Yeah, mine went up about 10%, so I wasn't too bad.
Anything in conclusion from the board? If not, your next meeting will be June the 21st at 9:30. Again, you'll be having a workshop in advance as soon as, tentatively set sometime during the second week of June.
That's the ERC works, this, are we?
Utility rate and combined with issues related to ERCs.
Okay.
Are we gonna continue this meeting, or are we just gonna call another one in June?
We're going to conclude this meeting, and I'm going to re-advertise the workshop, and the ad for the next regular meeting is already in progress. So there'll be a separate ad, Steve, for the workshop.
Very good.
Any public comments before we close the meeting?
Public comments before we close the meeting?
Oh, I got one more thing too.
I have just a couple of things. Deborah Jansen, Sunrise K. The ERC meeting is going to be open to the public?
All of our meetings are open to the public.
Okay, and the new CIP is on the website?
I don't know that.
Yes, it is.
The updated one,
It should be. And going to that too. Now that CIP is based on today's numbers. If this work is done over the next 5 years, those numbers will steadily go up in those 5 years too. That, for what it's worth.
Okay, and will the proposed landscape improvement actual work, be open for bids, or is it automatically going to go to Mr. Soto?
No, it's gonna be open for bids.
Open for bids, okay. And I want to agree with Russ. I do remember that when the sign was put up, the entrance sign at Newport, they had it higher. In the county, there was at that time a rule saying the elevation. So I don't know if that still is in effect, but that is why it's way down on the ground. And I just want to comment that I did see, I don't know if it was Southern Exposure, but they were unloading dock pilings from the marina within the last week. So I don't know if they're doing the work over there or not. And then finally, do you have any idea when unit billing will be set up for auto pay?
they are in the final phases of their beta test, and we have been told that we will be the first customer eligible to be picked up by the new ACH vendor. I don't have an actual date.
So now they will have auto pay where it just, you have a credit card on file, it pays it?
Yeah, auto pay is already there. Credit card pay is what I'm relating to when I say ACH.
How do they auto pay?
Yeah,
You can set it up now with your bank to pay it virtually through the bank. That's been part of their service for a year.
Okay, because I did get my bill and I called them up because there wasn't anything on the bill.
No,
And then he said, no, you still have
if
to
your
send a
bank
check.
has the provision to pay your bills, my understanding is that you can do an auto pay through your bank. We're talking about separate issues, giving you the ability to pay with a credit card.
Okay, that's not what the gentleman said. He said I had to pay by check, and
No.
where would we access, in fact, how to put our bank account information?
Some of that information is on the website. If that particular question is not, if you'll call my office and ask to speak to someone in accounting, typically they're not there on Mondays, but they are there the other days of the week, and they can tell you what that process or what application you need to fill out in order to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Neil, I understand that. I've had a lot of questions too about that. Could we put something on the front of the website so that people are aware to look for it? Because, I don't like the idea of where somebody has to call your office. I mean, you got better things to do than answer phones all day.
Yeah, Steve, we actually have on the website a drop-down concerning utility information, and I'll make a note, and we'll draft something with, I'll call it frequently asked questions or something like that. Maybe we can develop something and put it under the utility service form drop down.
Very good. Thank you.
Is auto pay set up through Omni or is it set up through you? Who takes the auto pay, Omni billing?
Muni billing?
Or Muni, sorry.
Yeah, they would do the processing of that. That's why we're waiting on their final beta conversion to make sure that whoever the new ACH vendor is, that their transactions are compatible with the Muni billing software. Kevin was on a recent conference call in that regard. I've got a couple. Kevin is recovering from the Kenny Chesney concert in Fort Lauderdale as a birthday present from his wife. For him to answer those questions. Anything else, Russ?
I had one more thing. This is just general information. Fiddler's Creek put out bids on mosquito street spraying, and they're under mosquito control.
I left money in your budget next year to continue
Yeah, I
to
saw
do.
it. I saw it. But I'm just letting you know that it's, 3 times the size of us, and they're putting
Even
bids
though
out.
they're in the district, they're doing supplemental
Yeah.
spraying. I would be shocked if we didn't do the same.
Yeah, so,
Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thank you. 11:52.
Hey, Mr. Truckee, you didn't break your old record.
I know you talked too long about that.
I know. You don't think I was watching the clock?
gonna say anything, Dan.
I've got a page full of one more things here.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice work, Steve.
Steve, I wasn't gonna say anything, but Dan was.
I was watching the clock.